let me go to the other part of this, which is how to combat the whole anxious anxiety thing, right? So you're anxious, you're realizing, oh my God, I'm doing anxious things. I'm texting nonstop. I'm trying to control what she does. How do I get out of this cycle? So I'm going to tell you 5 things that worked for me that hopefully will work for you as you try to become a more confident dater. So the first thing, very, very important, you have to become more self-recognizing. You have to recognize your patterns of behavior. And it's very easy when we're ourselves, we're us, we're the heroes in our own story. It's very easy to go years and just be caught up in how you do things and not realize that the way you're doing things doesn't actually work. So what this means is that you're going to have to start basically like going outside your body to really look at what you're doing and start recognizing various patterns of behavior. One of the earliest ones for me was this, right? So I talk about, guys write me a lot about texting, and I talk about how texting kills attraction. I got a whole book on my website called Texting Women Like a Boss, 21 Texting Commitments to Use to Attract Women with Your Phone. And one of the big things I noticed early on, which is why I wrote that book, is because I realized early on that when I was texting women a lot, it would start off great. And then over time, it would slow down. They'd start sending 1 or 2 word answers, and then it would go to nothing. Or when I finally ask for another date, it'd be like, not interested, right? So that's a pattern. How do I know? Because even though I've stopped doing that, you guys keep on writing me. And every guy, you guys are not different. Every guy that writes me has the exact same pattern. I was texting her a lot. Things are great. It slowed down. She ghosted. That is a pattern. So look at your own texting life, for example. If you've noticed in the last 3 or 4 girls that you were interested in, that it started off, you were texting a lot, things are going great, and then it slowed down, and then she ghosted, it could be you're texting too much. So then, okay, if you recognize that pattern, let's try not texting so much. Let's try what Harry says, which is only text to get dates and see what happens. Let's try only waiting 4 days between dates to text, even though I'm anxious about trying it. Nothing else I'm doing is working. Let's just try that out, trying to invite her to see you all the time. The big thing in the pickup artist thing was the whole idea of keynoing. Keynoing is basically like the thought that in order to get her to want to touch you, you got to try to do some non-sexual touches first, and then that'll let her know that, oh, this guy wants me to touch him, and I'll touch him back. And so I did that when I was looking at all the pickup artist stuff. I'd be like, I'll go on a date and be like, try to touch her, and this and that. And I found that women were creeped out by it because it's like, why is that happening? They said to touch, I'm going to touch, and then all of a sudden it's like they don't want to touch me, or they back away from me, or like, oh, they don't want to go on a date with me anymore. What the freak's going on? So then I was like, wait a minute. So if every girl that I'm trying to start touches with, they're going away. Okay, so that must mean that they're not ready for my touch. Okay, so like, does that mean they want to touch me? And then I started noticing, okay, but like the times when I'm not touching women, I find that when I'm not touching them, they're trying to find a reason to touch me. They're reaching out on the table. They're walking close to me. They're bumping up against me. They're touching my shoulder. Okay, so that's a pattern. So let me just try not touching, but let me see how I can put myself in their aura so that way I'm available for them to touch me when they're ready for it. Oh, surprise, surprise, that pattern worked better. So start looking at your past instances of like whether you were in times of relationships like seeking reassurance for things, or you were trying to go to her to beg for something, or she said she couldn't make a date and you lashed out at her. Like really start to look at the times at the point where these dating situations failed. What was the action? Like we can say, oh, she was crazy or she just lost interest, but like really like go back and analyze. Because if you go back and analyze, I can assure you a lot of things that you think like, oh, she just didn't like this thing, or I don't know. If you really look at, okay, but what was I talking about on dates? Like what things did I say that made me look like maybe I wasn't the most secure guy? What made me look needy? What actions was I doing that in hindsight made her realize that, oh, I'm trying to push this thing too soon? Like if you really analyze, then the good thing about doing that is that now it takes the onus off of her and what she did wrong, and it puts it onto you. And sometimes guys get, annoyed that, Harry, why do you always talk about like, what the guy's doing? It's because this is a channel for guys, and I want guys to be able to take control of their own dating life, which means taking control of the things you're doing. You can control to some level how she responds to things, but that's going to be based on how you're showing up on these dates. And so you can control that. You can control how often you text. You can control the kinds of things you talk about on dates, how often you go on dates. You can control when you're trying to have a relationship feelings conversation. Like those things you can control. So if you recognize the patterns of things that you typically do that cause women to head for the hills, then you will be able to say, okay, I can work on this. I can work on this versus the girl's got to come along and do the right things, which just goes back to anxious attachment. You're waiting for her to try to show you how. I hate songs when the guy's like, you need to show me how to love. That's not her job. Your job is to go in there, having worked on yourself, to know what it is you need to do as a guy to show up authentically in the world, but also in a way that's going to attract women. So part of that goes to some patterns you have could be bad patterns. Learn what they are and get rid of them. It'll be the best thing you do for your life. Another thing you can do to combat anxious anxiety, anxious attachment is to reflect on past experiences. Really dive deep into how it is that some of the things from your past could be affecting how you're showing up. I'll give a perfect example. I talk on the show extensively about how my dad died when I was 9. And so because of that, I didn't have a male guide to guide me through dating and blah, 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 right? Well, the reality is, in addition to that, my brother also lost a dad. Like, we have the same dad, same mom, like all this stuff, right? He was a complete Mac with girls in middle school and high school. He told me one day, because when we were kids, when he was a teenager, Titanic was a big movie, right? Titanic came out and just blew everything out of the water, no pun intended. But like, that movie was 3 hours long. My brother saw that movie like 7 or 8 times. And so when we got older, I was like, dude, you saw Titanic like so many times. He was like, yeah, like it was a 3-hour movie. It was the only place I could go to where I could take dates and mom wouldn't question where I was taking them and I could go make out for 3 hours. Totally missed that message. You know what I'm saying? But so I had to look at, okay, so then what was the real reason? Because he clearly, whatever. And what I realized is that my brother's favorite parent was our mom. My favorite parent was my dad, and that loss hurt. So as a way to combat losing somebody that I love so much ever again, I was self-sabotaging myself to where at the point that I started realizing that there were girls that actually liked me, I would do everything I could to make sure she was turned off. And I didn't realize till about mid-20s, like, oh crap, like that's some leftover trauma crap that I never got over. Holy cow. So I had to look at that past experience and contextualize like, oh crap, like, so I'm doing this stuff to get rid of women so I won't feel bad if they end up dying on me later. Like, that's horrible. I got to like realize that if women are liking me, I need to start figuring out what to do to keep them around because that's not fair to me or the person, So really look at your childhood, look at the things you were told as a teenager, whether you were teased, whether you were rejected, like look at all these things so that way you can start getting a better idea of like some subconscious thing that you have hidden in the back of your past that's causing you to fail with women now. And just doing that work, you'll be surprised at how much just doing some self-reflection will make you second guess and realize, oh crap, that's why that happened. Oh, that's why I'm this way. Okay, I don't have to be this way if I just deal with what this trauma is, or at the very least, just recognize what it is. The third way to combat being an anxious attachment person is to start monitoring your emotional reactions. Now, this is very important because if you're not aware of this exercise, you may be a guy that's just like, well, I just am the way I am, and the things I get mad at, like people will recognize at this point that they get triggered and don't want to do nothing about the triggers, or they'll just go about in life reacting certain ways and not really getting to the root of how that reaction came to be in the first place, and then being able to monitor it. So for me, for example, right? I've had instances dating, for example, let's say like, I'm very much a time stickler, right? If I say I'm going to be here at this time and on this day at this place, then I am expecting the person that I'm with to also respect that, right? So at the point where that doesn't happen, let's say I get to some place at 7 o'clock and my date calls me and says, hey, I'm gonna be like 15 minutes late. Well, at this point, I have options. I can yell at this person because I'm like, you freaking knew what time we were supposed to be there. And like, why are you making me wait? Once again, you're just not respecting my time. You're just that kind of girl, blah, 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 blah. I can do that. I've seen plenty of guys do that. But does that make the woman feel like good? Like she could be late for legitimate reasons. Traffic, got held at work last minute, couldn't find the right shoe, or she did find the right shoe, but then she got locked out of her car trying to get to me. So she had to figure out another key to get, like tons of reasons, right? But I could have the reaction of this, I'm just going to fly off the handle. Or I could be like, you know what? Before I get mad, let me just stop here. Okay, she said she's going to be late. What am I feeling right now? I can feel that I'm angry. I really want to curse her out. I can feel myself starting to be that guy that I don't want to be. So before that happens, why don't we just sit and wait for her to get here to further explain the situation before I decide what my reaction is going to be. And you know what's funny is that most people don't think that they can control their reactions like that. Like people think, well, but then that's not me reacting authentically. But if you reacting authentically to things is causing you to curse women out or to call them out their name, or to do anything that makes you look needy in some kind, then is that the actual reaction you want? It is not. And so I find anytime something that I don't like happens, just sitting there and reflecting and thinking about it for 10 seconds, just like before I decide to react, let's look at the situation. How am I feeling about it? What actually happened? Can I take a moment to think about this from the other person's perspective and what's going on? And can I be patient? So this goes to everything from like texting. I text somebody, okay, it's been like 5 minutes. I had a friend, I'm doing a wedding expo. So I have a photo booth business also. So I have a wedding expo I'm doing next week. And I called one of my female friends to help with the wedding expo because females at wedding expos do absolutely great, right? So I hit her up and said, hey, I wanted to know if you can help me with the expo. Crickets. Didn't respond for like 3 or 4 days. I'm like, so 3 or 4 days been sitting there like, okay, she needs to get back to me. Like, what the freak? So for me to be like, imagine if I reacted like, why haven't you gotten back to me? If you don't want to come, you could just tell me about this, like, I could be assuming all these negatives, or I could sit there, okay, I'm feeling a little anxious because the expo's coming up. I don't know if she's going to be able to go or not. I have time to hire another person. Like, what's going on? Why isn't she respecting me enough to contact me back? And I said, you know what? If she wants to do it, she will. If not, she won't. But like, there's no need to pester her. She knows that you want her there. It is what it is. Day 4. Hey, sorry, I've been busy with work this week. Yeah, I'd love to help you out. So I get what I want because I was able to sit there and pause, recognize my emotions, and say, I don't want to freak out on this person. So they got stuff going on maybe I don't know about. Let's give them time. And because of that, the person's going to come to the thing. Versus texting her day 2, I just want you to know that I don't respect that you're not doing whatever, blah, blah. That's me showing anxiousness. That's me not recognizing that she has a life going on, that maybe she didn't see that, whatever. Like, and so you need to do that as a guy. Like in the dating phase, there's going to be a lot of times where you're thinking things are going to happen one way and it's not. But you don't know this person and they don't have a history enough with you to care about if they're doing things on your time frame or responding to you in the way that you want them to on text. All that matters is you can control how you react to things. And you will find that sometimes if you just sit and wait and you're just patient and you recognize the feelings and just don't like act on them, that women will be like, he's just so patient. He's so emotionally intelligent. He didn't yell at me when I wasn't able to make it on time for this thing. I just feel so like, you got to recognize that most women don't experience that. Most women experience guys that I don't have a handle of my emotions and things just happen and I just said things out of anger. I have yet to be in a relationship with a woman where I just felt the need to curse her out. Like it just, you effing B, like I can say things in a way that give that feeling tone without saying those exact words because I can sit myself and think and say, okay, how do I want to say this in a way that's going to get my point across, make her understand the seriousness of it, but not hurt her feelings because I don't want her yelling at me. I don't want her cursing at me. I don't want her yelling at me. You just did this to hurt me on purpose, blah, 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 blah. But that comes to, okay, that's going to be the initial feeling you have. Does that feeling need to go out? Why do you feel that thing when you feel it? And how can this be changed for the better of the situation? So something to consider. That's the third thing. The fourth way to get rid and combat anxious attachment style is to start looking at your communication patterns. And so look at the things that you're doing or saying. For example, are all your conversations on dates about like, well, is this gearing towards a relationship? Are all the questions you have about like, well, how do you feel about me? Do you see this thing going somewhere? Because it could very well be that the conversations you're having are the very things that are causing women to head for the hills. Like, if you're not aware of, for example, I say with me all the time, I talk very fast. You guys hear it. I hear it. On dates, I'm very mindful that for those first few dates, it might behoove me to slow down a little bit so they can not feel like nervous energy because I know talking fast gives nervous energy. I just get really excited. But like, again, for those early dates, they don't know me like that yet. They don't owe me the courtesy of understanding that me talking fast is equated with me being excited and happy, So I understand that. I change my communication pattern for dates. And then as we get to know each other more, then it becomes more acceptable as their like for me increases. But you have to understand that she doesn't have that on day 1. So it may mean you talk a little slower. It may mean not telling all the dirty jokes that you want to tell early on. It may mean recognizing that having the conversations of let's talk about feelings and how you hurt me the other day, but not text me back right away aren't the best conversations to have early on in the dating process because she's not going to care. So those are things you got to look at. And then the fifth thing to combat anxious attachment style is to always be seeking self-improvement. One of the reasons I create these various books, these coaching programs, or even the free stuff like the videos on my page, is because I was in your shoes once. And I recognize that by me, in my days, I was looking at people like Doc Love and David D'Angelo and these other guys that helped me because I was seeking self-improvement. I knew I was at a place where my dating was terrible, me relating to women was terrible, my attachment style was terrible, and I wanted out. But I found that by doing the work of self-improving myself, I became more confident and I became that kind of guy that women wanted to date, you know? And so you have the ability to do that. Like, you don't have to be where you're at right now. You could totally be you could be yourself, but be yourself as the version of yourself that is accepting of there are newer ways to do things that will be better to add to your arsenal that will work in the dating capacity while still being authentic, all right? And so I've been doing this stuff now. This will be my 20th year helping men with their dating lives. And I am still a student of the dating game. I still look up videos regularly. I'm still reading articles, both for you guys, but also for myself, because I don't want to rest my laurels. I'm always like, I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic, but there's always a shot I could be doing better. So why not? So that's me as a person that is like engulfed in this. You as a person that is like kind of struggling a little bit, don't be ashamed in thinking that it's bad to seek out self-improvement in the dating game, because we don't all get born like my brother where you're just kind of like naturally good with people, especially if you're an introvert. If you're an introvert, talking to people is already its own challenge, let alone then relating to them and then relating to women. Like, that's a journey. And so you always want to be seeking self-improvement. I would love to be part of that journey for you guys. So if you go to introvertdatingsuccess.com, I got ebooks, audiobooks. I got a free webinar right now called 3 Nice Guy Dating Patterns That Turn Women Off and What to Do Instead. That will help you start getting out of the nice guy phase of things. And of course, I got paid programs, which I don't feel bad charging for because it was a lot of work to get to where I'm at. So, but anyway, the point is I have all the stuff that's available to help you guys, but whether it's my stuff or somebody else's stuff, be constantly seeking self-improvement, because it's the best thing that you can do to take control of your dating life and avoid being an anxious attachment dater. So hopefully that portion of this show helps you out immensely. All right.
You's a bad boy, but you can't stop, won't stop. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high class man. You a high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a